Eosefu, gather together as one. Then I'll be able to tell you what will happen to you at the end of days. This message of Yaakov Avinu was not just to his sons, but the whole of the people of Israel. And when he mentions Acharit Hayamim, it refers what's going to happen, if you can call it the goal of history. Acharit Hayamim is the phrase used throughout the Tanakh to describe what we call redemption of mankind. So let's try to understand it more deeply. First of all, we'll try to understand the phrase Asher Yikra Etchem. This is Kuf Resh Aleph, which really means to call and summons. It is somewhat connected to the word Asher Yikra. Yikra is Kuf Resh Hey, which is generally described as a happening. But the whole concept of life, all happenings are summons. Whatever happens in this world, to an individual, to a nation, to mankind as a whole, is a part of divine providence. And here there's a description of the divine providence, what's going to happen in human history. When you think about it, that there are descriptions here of what might happen in the future, which are then developed more by the prophets of Israel, and which we see unfolding in front of our eyes. What is said about the Acharit in the whole of the Bible, the whole of the Tanakh. So very important messages, especially at the present time. So I'd like to bring to you some deep insights of one of the deepest commentaries on the Chumash by Rav Hirsch. Acharit is different to Kates. Kates also the end, when something ceases. Acharit is that which comes afterwards. It means the legacy of the days, the goal of history. Now we know from what follows in this chapter 49 that Yaakov, he did not see his sons as having any aspect of uniformity. On the contrary, he saw them in their diversity. Each one is different. But the challenge which is given to the people of Israel, the tribes, is different though you are from one another, you have to develop and devote yourselves with that diversity, with one spirit, which is to Easfu, to come together and create harmony within diversity. So he says in the next verse, it says, Hikov too, keep together and listen, O sons of Yaakov. And again, listen to Israel, your father. The double listening is a concept of absorbing ideals. Here there's a hint in this verse. First of all, listen to what I'm telling you as a person, as your biological father. But also, Shimur Yisrael Avichem, Shema Yisrael. Listen to what I represent, which is to create spirituality in this world. So first, to go back to the concept of Yikra Etchem. There'll be happenings, but those happenings are a call unto you. And now to go into it a bit further, this is the first time that the phrase Achrit Hayamim is mentioned. And we find it also mentioned in the prophets, in the famous prophecy, perhaps the most famous prophecy of the world today, and the most hopeful message is when it mentions the end of days as it's inscribed in the central city of mankind, which is New York, on the building of the United Nations. What does it say there? Do any of you know? Well, if you don't know, I suppose most mass media know that the United Nations have as their ideal the fulfillment, what it says, both in the prophet Isaiah and the prophet Micha. In the end of days, what will happen? It says,
the Lamb will lie with
yes, also, but let's deal with the main verses, which are that the highest mountain will become lifted up even higher. The highest mountain won't be Everest. It says the highest mountain is the mountain of the God of Yaakov, where there will be the temple. And it says, "V'noaru elav kol ha'amim," all the nations will stream towards it. Nahar will see it like rays. They'll see the rays of spirituality. The hope of mankind is raised to its highest level in that message. When people will no longer learn warfare, instead they transform their swords into plowshares, they'll develop all their energies in order to produce more food from the fantastic gifts which are given to us on this globe, and war will become obsolete. There'll be no more fighting. And there'll be peace and happiness. So that's what Acharit Hayamim. How will it come about? It will come about through the people of Israel, it says. Because all the nations want to learn from the people of Israel how to worship the one true God, and how to also practice the will and the revelation of the creator of the globe and the creator of human beings who live on this globe, how they should conduct their lives on the basis of a high level of morality. And the whole aim will be of mankind to produce more peace and more happiness instead of being destructive. So that's one Acharit Hayamim. So it is developed already in the Chumash, the Torah, and afterwards in all the prophets, that it depends upon the people of Israel, the seed of Yaakov, fulfilling their mission. So it says, if they will do it and fulfill this, as already mentioned in the book of Dvarim, where Hashem has promised enormous blessing for the people of Israel in the land of Israel, at the parting of the three continents, that they should be a beacon of light for all mankind. So if we do it, it says, all the nations of the world will see that the name of Hashem, the Creator, is called upon you. V'yaru mimeka, from you they will learn, Yerushalayim, from you they will learn how to be aware of God, the Creator. But if you don't do it, there'll be terrible punishments. And the terrible punishments were threatened because Hashem hopes that we listen to the threats and they won't become fulfilled. Why? Because we decide to choose blessing instead of curse. And that's what Hashem is asking us to do in every generation, from the beginning of the people of Israel. Unfortunately, we are now in a situation that the world is filled with warfare, cold and hot. The world is filled with hate instead of love. So, there's still a remnant left amongst the people of Israel. Even most of the people of Israel have either been killed or they've become assimilated. They know nothing about their spiritual mission. So therefore the challenge today is those who do know the Tanakh, those who do learn the Bible, and who try to fulfill what Hashem wants. And that's the message of Achrit Hayamim. That we should have in front of our eyes the vision of Yeshai and Micha. On the other, Yechezkel, who speaks at the time of the collapse of the first kingdom, when also there was no temple left anymore, it was being destroyed, the people of Israel being banished. So there, Yechezkel prophesies what's going to happen in the future is that if you fulfill the covenant with Hashem, then the beginning of the second Commonwealth, the second Beit HaMikdash, will usher in the final division, which is also the symbol of the menorah. The spiritual light that must go from the people of Israel was given to Zechariah at the beginning of the second temple, with the hope the second temple would become the final redemption, which would spread light everywhere. But unfortunately, second temple was destroyed because primarily, instead of there being unity in diversity and harmony, there was too much sinat chinam. There wasn't this spirit of unity. And therefore, we're today again in this position. There's no temple, but we see there are signs Hashem is giving us. Certainly, it's part of His story. It's not a happening, what has happened recently, that the remnant of our people after the terrors of the Holocaust have been given the ability to return to our homeland, but to return to our homeland to be a spiritual force, as indicated even by the symbol of the state of Israel, the menorah. The symbol of the menorah. Don't think you'll ever be successful in the state of Israel unless you follow the message of the menorah given to the prophet of the beginning of the second Commonwealth. And now you hope there's going to be a third settlement of the people of Israel. Remember the symbol of the menorah. Lo b'chayil, v'lo b'koach. If you think through having a strong army, a strong nation, materially, that's going to be the solution to your problems, the menorah tells you no. You have to use chayil and koach for self-defense. Correct? For self-defense, it's part of one of the principles of the Torah. Don't allow evil murderers to take over. Don't become victims to them. But the only way to succeed, to be the global power that will change the world, is with the menorah, and the menorah is the mitzvah and the Torah. The mitzvah, the practical ways whereby we can improve our character, individual and as a nation, and also getting our mind tied up with the wisdom that God Himself has given us through His Torah. So we have to study the Torah, kindle the light, and keep the light burning. And the light will become so strong that it will not only change your nation, it will change the whole world. And today, what does Yechezkel say? If you don't do this, there'll be another Acharit Hayamim. The Acharit Hayamim, Yechezkel says, in the end of days, there's going to be world wars. And those world wars, their real target will be to destroy the Jewish people. And they'll send even upon Yerushalayim. And as David HaMelech says, also describing these Milchamot Gog and Magog, which is a symbol for the power of the 70 nations who are supposed to reflect the harmony of the world. That's the concept of the 70. And the 70 nations' journey towards true peace will come through the 70 souls, which was the beginning of transforming the family of Yaakov into a clan when they went down to Egypt. in order, through the school of suffering, from those who base their lives upon tyranny and strength, we have to learn that true life is a spiritual life of service to Hashem. If we do that, then the 70 souls can be the trigger to change the 70 nations and make them all join together to create a beautiful world. And that's the challenge that faces us today. So it's Achrit Hayamim that is referred to here in this passage, which has a double interpretation. The Midrash says it can be Achrit Hayamim of Melchemet Gog uMagog, Chas v'Shalom, of world wars, which reach such a pinnacle of evil and destructivity that there's a possibility today, with all the weapons that are being developed by mankind, and some of them, unfortunately, without moral people directing these weapons, that they can overkill every aspect of human and animal life on this globe tens of thousands of times. So it's a very difficult situation. That's one Achrit Hayamim. And that's what Yaakov Avinu was talking about. The Achrit Hayamim, he says, Hikavtzu. Which one it's going to be depends upon us. And it's got to be done in a way of Achdut. Achdut, unity, does not mean uniformity. As we see from the 12 tribes, Achdut means we've all got different aspects and we've got to keep them all together. Now there's the following aspect to all this, that we find that this major challenge given to us, it's described in the Midrashim in many different ways. It says near the end of the prophet Yeshaya, it speaks first about the light which will shine over the people of Israel at the time when it says, when all the nations are really in confusion. There's darkness. They don't know which way to go. And unfortunately, many of them, they become darker and darker in their hatred of human beings, in the hatred of life. It's described there how mankind as a whole, they'll transform life on this earth to a Gehinnom. But at such a time, Hashem said, over you there will shine the light of the Torah. And then he concludes the future. What's going to be the future with these words? Ani Hashem, I am Hashem who leads the world, and I am Hashem who is Chesed. I believe in loving kindness, and the greatest loving kindness I've expressed by giving human beings freedom to become partners themselves in either producing love or producing hate. So he says, as far as you, the people of Israel, are concerned, Ani Hashem, ve'ita achishena. I, Hashem, will bring the redemption. In the end, there's going to be a redemption. The question is how? Is it going to be only after their wars, after their terrible birth pangs of the Mashiach? And there's such birth pangs that sometimes happens to a woman as well, when she's about to have a baby. It's so complex that sometimes the mother dies through the terror of the final birth pangs, when there are different problems. Finish. So these birth pangs of the Mashiach, when we feel almost we're at the end, as we did have under the Nazis, that was the situation. Had it not been for forces, a little bit of love that one saw that came from some of the nations, but most of the nations were against us, and it looked as though the people of Israel is finished. And even today, it's a very difficult situation. Are we going to survive as a nation or not? That is the question, to be or not to be. Hashem says, I will not allow the world to go to complete destruction. And I'm going to allow the world to be saved through the people of Israel. But when will it happen? It hasn't happened all these years, or thousands of years. We've been one persecution after the other. And after the Holocaust, we thought it's all finished now. Now all the nations of the world are doing teshuvah. Well, what's happened in Europe? Even Europe itself, what's going on there? Neo-Nazis, the Middle East, who are part also in the Holocaust, some of the Muslims. What's happening today? It's a very serious situation. And we don't know, it's Hashem's ve'ito. And we'll bring it in its time. It's a tradition, it will happen at the end of 6,000 years, or when Hashem decides the time has come. But he also, Hashem also said, I'll bring it sooner. I'll bring it swifter. What does it depend on? Discussion already in the Gemara about this, detail. Bring all the verses, all the proofs. We see what's behind it. Achishena means the Mashiach can come. Also, there's the following vision brought in the prophets. Mashiach will come like a poor man, having nothing, riding on a donkey, the lowest of the lowest beasts. That's how Mashiach will come. There's another description, Mashiach will come like riding the clouds of heaven. So it all depends. Will the Mashiach come if the people of Israel do teshuvah of their own accord? Then it'll be like the cloud from heaven. The heavenly power. The heavenly power that gets into the people of Israel, that gets amongst the great saints, and everyone follows the great saints and tries to go in the path of Satan, it'll produce such a light. The Mashiach will come. But he might also come when there's no other possibility available. Unfortunately, the people of Israel have such a low level of closeness to Hashem that Hashem sees that he has to save. Therefore, he'll bring great sufferings upon the people. And then he'll force them to see there's no other alternative except to call unto Hashem. It's similar to hundreds and thousands of people all over the world who say, I don't believe in God, I don't have a connection with God. But as some say, there's no way of human beings being atheists in the trenches, they used to say. But when the person is faced with a situation when clear death lies before him, he'll cry out to God. Whatever he knows about God, he'll cry out to him. With whatever language and whichever expressions. And if it's a Jew, there's someone next to him says, Shema Yisrael, but please, say it to me, I can say it as well. There's no such thing as anybody when he's faced with life and death. He's not going to take hold of this string, maybe God, you'll help me. In his language, whatever he knows. And that applies to all the people of Israel. If we're in such a situation that of our own accord during life, we're not going to pick up the enormous power of spirituality that Hashem has given to the people of Israel, and unfortunately we become too assimilated, too far. Hashem will bring such sufferings upon us, we'll have no choice left. And we'll all call out to Hashem. It's well known that when people are being driven into the gas chambers, and there've been one or two sometimes who were able to pile themselves out somewhere where they could survive, they said, one thing is that everybody, they heard someone saying Shema Yisrael, everybody joined in, with no exceptions. The biggest deniers of God, they all said Shema Yisrael, the last words, if they could say it. So this is the situation we're faced with today. That's why I can bring it early, and bring it now, and bring it even today.
Amen.
And now, I'll just end with the following, because also at the end of the book of Isaiah, there's a prophecy of what might happen at the end of days. And he speaks there about a situation where unfortunately the people of Israel have gone astray. So Hashem says, there's some people who are Haredim el Dvarai, people who tremble at my word. This word Haredim, trembling, is mentioned when the Torah was given. The Torah was given in a volcanic eruption, and with thunder and lightning, and where the mountain was over the people. And from there came the voice of Hashem. And sages say, why did Hashem give the Torah in such a manner? In such a terrifying manner? Because Hashem said to them, if Am Yisrael will receive the Torah willingly, like they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, very good. Then the mountain blooms, it's filled with blossoms, and then they are said that they were given. But if the people don't fulfill the Torah, then there'll be your burial place, finished. The people of Israel can only exist if they keep loyal to their mission. And if not, I'll bring back this globe to tohu vavohu, to chaos. And that is the situation. That wasn't the situation then, in fact. But that is the situation today, in fact. You know, tohu vavohu is used today by the top nuclear scientists to describe new elements. I won't go to the details of it, the most up-to-date nuclear physics, but the nuclear power that has been discovered in the progress of science is exceedingly powerful energy to get everything going on this globe, but it's equally such strong energy to explode the whole world. That is the big question now with Iran. In practice, no longer just an image, it's a reality. That the whole situation, are we going to permit nuclear power to be in the hands of people who are against the Bible? People who are not so far removed in their ideology, the ideology of Daesh, although the Iranians are fighting it. But who knows? If Chas v'Shalom, if Daesh would be able to win its battle against Iraq and against Iran, it's a terrible dream. It's a nightmare. So therefore, it all depends on us. And we do have the ability to turn the tide in the direction of real teshuvah, to do teshuvah. So the saints also say, do you know when the Mashiach will come? Either in a generation which is totally meritorious, or it'll come in generations which are totally guilty. If totally means you've got the majority. If the majority in Eretz Israel will follow Charedim, that's what it says at the end of Yeshaya, Charedim, mentioned there already. Charedim, that means people who recognize, all right, if we don't wear blinkers, you will tremble very much what's going to happen every day. And these people, each day they have to be on guard to see, is the balance of terror still working? Or is it collapsing? And any day it can collapse. You never know. I mean, who would have thought, even 5 years ago, that we would have a growing army of people who take such joy in, I don't even want to say what they do, but you all know what they do. The most cruel methods ever thought of. We know Muhammad at a certain period when he had that mania against the Jews, but he had other periods where he was friendly to the Jews. And let's say the more moral members of Islam, who are unfortunately in minority, I mean, they say this is not the Quran, this is a distortion of the Quran. Because really the Quran is, in practice, as a more traditional Quran, is to treat human beings in the human manner, to follow basically the principle of no code. But if there's always been some ambivalence, there have been changes, generation to generation, area to area, how they deal with it today. Even today it's true. The Kurds and some of the Moroccans, they're much more moderate. But you have these extreme groups now. You're absorbing the underworld. The people are more or less people who have criminal tendencies. They like to join them because they want to have a place where they can bring out their terrible mania, even one can call it, to kill people. So it's a very serious situation. So therefore we have the option today as Jewish people to try to go in the direction of Zechut, in which case the Mashiach can come any day, the Jewish change can come, because things happen very swiftly here, or the opposite direction. So now to go back to Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu said, I'm going to tell you, what's it depend upon? Depends upon unity. And where do we need unity today? If in practical terms, we need unity amongst the Haredim. There are Haredim referred to by the Prophet already, which are going to be a group before the coming of the Mashiach. There'll be assimilated Jews, and there'll be mediocre Jews, and there'll be Jews who really want to fulfill the Torah. All Jews who fulfill the Torah have to unite. That we know today, unfortunately, we've got a lot of splits also, internal divisions. But our approach should be, where we know there are Hasidic Jews, there are amongst the Hasidim also plenty of varieties, about over 100 varieties of Hasidic Rebbes. Then you've got Lithuanian Jews, so-called Jews who concentrate upon Torah, not so much upon Hasidus. Then we have Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews. Amongst them there's different splits. We've all got to recognize all Jews who recognize Hashem and recognize the Torah of Hashem as being the constitution of the people of Israel, and especially in the land of Israel. We all have to unite, whatever type of kippah we wear, no distinctions with kippah sruga or kippah, even what they call sometimes a grush kippah, or we wear big black kippah, or very big colored kippah, or we wear a hat, or we wear a stripe. No difference. All Jews who believe in the Torah. There were 12 tribes, the sons of Yaakov Avinu. They had to learn also, it wasn't easy for them on their level. They had to learn, you're all different, you've got to work together. So Yaakov Avinu said, what did he do? The tribe in Hebrew is called a shaver. The shaver also means a staff. So he took 12 thick pieces of wood. He broke each one separately. Then he made them into a bundle. Now he said, make a strong bundle. Is there anyone who can break them? No one can break them. Let us become a strong bundle, and let us also look with compassion upon all the Jews who've intermarried, who've assimilated. That's part of it. Let's draw them all near to a unified aspect of the people of Israel. As the sages said, if you have a minyan and you want very much that Hashem should listen to your prayers, so it says, the verse is brought for this, also in the Gemara, you've got to have a member of that community who is not religious, not yet religious. Because that's why you have, in the morning we say the Ketoret. The Ketoret was the incense offering that brought a heavenly odor to the Beit HaMikdash. And it was made of 11 different spices. And one of the spices is a terrible odor. But if it's mixed with the other 10, it makes them all sweeter. So the sages say similarly, if we make a strong body together of all Jews who do believe in Hashem and His Torah, and we work in a manner like Yaakov Avinu wanted as well, that this concept should spread. It will spread first to the whole of Jewry, and then from Jewry it will spread to all the nations of the world, and then we'll have Yitzhak Hashem, the fulfillment of the Acharit Hayamim of the coming of the Mashiach in our days.
Amen. Amen.